Okay, we're on chapter 7. Things are about to get very difficult for Haman, finally. Chapter 7 starts with the second feast. We said that Esther was intimating to Achashverosh that her and Haman were in a relationship. That's what's inside Achashverosh's head. He's upset for a few reasons. Number one, he happens to love Esther very, very much. He thinks that Haman is trying to take advantage of her. And also, he's also upset because he let Vashti go, which led to the situation in the first place. So now there's this fear that he's having. Take a seat. Hi. Hi. Take a seat. There's this little fear that he's having that maybe Esther and Haman have their sights on his position in order to take over the kingdom. And we open up at the second feast. So all of that is swirling around Achashverosh's head. Are these people trying to get me? Are they on my side? Are they against me? Did I give Haman all this power and now he's going to use it against me? It's freaking him out. Let's have a look. Remember that Esther has now voluntarily allowed herself to have relations with Achashverosh. She actually became pregnant from this. She had one child that we know of through Achashverosh, who is going to be called Darius, Dariavesh the second, and he's actually going to allow the Jewish people to return and rebuild the second Beit HaMikdash after this story. So that's interesting of itself. But she's done that, which was very difficult because that means she could not reunite with her husband, Mordechai. So they come to the second feast, and he says to her, okay, now tell me who you are. What do you want? What can I do for you? Right? Just tell me you can have half of my kingdom. Ma bakashateich. What is your bakasha? What is your she'elah? What can I give you? She responds and says, I'm going to tell you. I need you to save my life, and I need you to save the life of my people. Who are your people? And she finally admits, we are the Jewish people. I'm part of that nation, and this is the nation that Haman wanted to destroy. Haman wants me dead. And there's no benefit you're going to have by killing these people. He could have turned around and been like, fine, you can live, but I want the Jews dead still. He's like, there's no point. You might as well keep them alive. I mean, you didn't even offer to make them into your slaves, right, which used to be done. You just want to wipe them out. There's no point killing them. They add so much to every society that they're in. They build up the economy, they build up the people, the social justice, the charity, everything you could imagine they're doing. Why would you want us dead? That's a question we have to ask the anti-Semites today. Why do you always want us dead? What benefit is there? So he says, well, she's going to reveal it right now. Vayomer melech la'achashverosh, and he says la'Esther Malka, mi hu zeh ve'ezehu. Who are these people that I want to destroy? Well, he doesn't know. He sent out a decree to kill them already, didn't he? So one opinion is he actually didn't know. Haman kept it a secret and said, oh, just kill these people, forget who they are, there's a nation, and have them wiped out. But the other opinion is a lot more likely that he did know, but the Megillah wants to make him look good, and not that he wanted to kill the Jewish people and then change his mind. Actually, he did know. He knew that he wanted them dead, but now he's willing to retract that. And Esther says, and by the way, this is the person that you gave the power to. He's the one who instigated this whole massacre of me, the one you love, and my people. And Haman, it says in verse 6, nivat, he trembled. From 1 minute, in a split second, he's on top of the world. And then in the next split second, he falls down. There is an expression the rabbis use for this very quick turnaround. V'nahafechu. We're going to see that word come up. V'nahafech. Right, the whole thing turns around. V'nahafechu. It all turns around quickly. It all turns. V'nahafechu. The whole thing's hafuch. You know, it's all back. It turns around a second. From this, the rabbis say, Yeshuot Hashem Ka Heref Ayin. The Yeshuot Hashem, the saving of Hashem, comes in the blink of an eye. Hashem can save in the blink of an eye, which means very quickly. It can all turn around quickly. When humans try to change things, they've got to go to war, they've got to change governments. It takes weeks, months, years. When Hashem does it in 1 second, Haman is at the height of heights, and now he turns around and he is at the lowest of the lows. The Jewish people are in complete danger, and in a split second, it all turns around. V'nahafachu. That word is going to appear in the Megillah later on as being the signature idea of the Jewish people having been saved. V'nahafachu. This is, well, we're in verse 6, but later on we'll see the word v'nahafoch is going to appear. I'm just showing this is where it turns. This is the turning point. This is the turning point of the Jewish people, well, not completely saved, because Haman is about to die. But the decree against the Jewish people does not die so quickly. We're going to get to that today. The king is furious with Haman. He thinks he's being tricked. And what does he do? He gets up, b'chamato, in anger, from this mishte yayin, from this meal he's at, and he goes to the garden. He wants to chill out in the garden. Why did Hashem lead him to go to the garden? What happened in the garden last time? Some other event happened in the garden.
They were talking about killing him?
Even before that. The opening story happens in the Gina with the party. The party's in the garden. What happened in the garden? His wife, Vashti, was killed. He's like, 1 second. Whose idea was it for me to kill Vashti? Haman. He's in the garden. He's like, it's happening again. Now he wants to get rid of the love of my life, Esther. This guy is a real problem. And obviously all this was downloaded surreptitiously into his head, so he'd start to really not trust Haman. Okay, so he goes, and what happens in between? So in between, Haman realizes he's in big trouble. He has to plead to this, now he knows, Jewish woman to have him saved. What does he do? Look at verse 8. V'melech sham habitan el beit mishteh. He comes back. At the moment that he walks back into the mishteh, into this feast, he sees that Haman nofel al hamita, falls on her bed. What? Yeah. Haman pleads with her. How does he plead with her? He falls on her bed. What bed are we talking about? So in those days, they didn't used to have tables and chairs. They used to eat on really what would be a recliner. They'd lie back and have a little mini table next to them. And she was sitting on that because having a feast. It's not a bedroom, it's a feast. So she's lying on this thing. He freaks out. He goes down to plead with her, right? And bow down to, please don't have me killed by her. He realizes the jig's up, it's all over. He pleads with her, please don't let Achashverosh kill me. At that moment, Achashverosh returns from the walk, the spitzier he was having in the garden. He sees Haman on the bed, right? Some say it's so weird that maybe an angel came and pushed him onto the bed. That's how he ended up over there. But he was pleading for his life, and he's like, wow. Even when I'm gone, you can't resist, and you try to kill her. Some say you try to have relations with her at that time, right? You two are really cohabiting in order to bring me down. That's it. The decree against Haman is gone, and it says, Upenei Haman chafu. That is the end of the 8th verse. If you look at it, the face of Haman was covered. What do you mean it's covered? Why would you cover his face? Why is Haman's face being covered? Well, when a decree of death used to be put on a person, they would cover their face, as if to say, you no longer have a right to even look at me. And some say that he was so angry, by covering his face, it calmed him down a little bit, because just looking at Haman's face infuriated him. Vayomer Chavorna, there was a guy who was an assistant to Achashverosh and Haman. He was one of the Sarisim, one of the servants, and he comes along at this point, and at one point he had been with Haman, and now he changes sides. He sees that Haman is not going to win, and he changes sides. Why is his name mentioned? So it's interesting. We actually look at Charvona in a good light. Although he wanted to hurt the Jewish people, when he saw the downfall of Haman, he changed sides. And even such a person, we say, Zcholatov, you get rewarded for that. At least he changed his mind at the end. Right? So Charvona is one of these interesting characters that just appears for a moment, but we sing and speak about him as being one of the people. There's going to be many, many more people like Charvona who are like, you know what? We get it. We're not going to win. And he took the Jewish people's sides. He was a traitor, but we actually have a little bit of respect for him. And we see here, Midah keneged Midah, measure for measure. Haman, who wanted to kill Keneged, he wanted to kill Mordechai by putting him on the eights on the tree. He's like, you're going to be hanged from the exact tree that you wanted to do. This is another example of Midah, Keneged Midah, measure for measure. What you built, that 50 Amah tower to kill Mordechai, you are going to be hanged on it instead. And they hanged him. The Yitlo at Haman. So the end of the chapter is Haman is now dead. He's been hanged over there. And the king's anger, shachacha, which is translated as it went down, it abated. Actually, this is a double expression. This is plural. Which means there are two kings whose anger was reduced. Who are these two kings? Who are the two kings whenever we mention kings in the Megillah? It's Achashverosh and it's Hashem. So Achashverosh's anger, now Haman is dead, has gone down. And you can also read it that the other king, Hamelech, the king of kings, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his anger from everything the Jewish people did by bowing down to the statue of Nebuchadnezzar or going to the feast, all of that was machaper. It's all gone. It worked. It absolutely worked. Okay? So now we have another problem. Haman is dead. Good news. But Haman's decree to kill the Jewish people is still there. So now Mordechai and Esther have to figure out a plan to get that back, because that's already been distributed, right? That was done in Nisan, and the decree is that all the Jewish people should die on what day of what month?
20th of year?
Huh? No.
Adar.
Adar 13. 13. That was the date. If you remember, the decree is. So now they're like, what are we going to do? Well, what would you do? How would you get the decree revoked?
Make a new decree to cancel it out.
Make a new decree to cancel that. Well, why do you need a new decree to cancel it? Just cancel it then.
You can cancel it because he had the ring, and like it makes Achashverosh look bad if he goes back on his thing.
She's right. They're going to try to do it, and Achashverosh is not going to like it. He's going to be like, no, I can't bring back the decree. That's what's going to happen. On that day, Achashverosh rewarded Esther and Malka, Haman's house, which is a sign that they are now in full control, and he gave the signet ring, which he took from Haman's hand and gave it to Mordechai. So Mordechai is really now a very important, powerful person. But verse 3 says, it's not enough. V'tosef Esther. Esther, Tosef means she added more supplications. And she spoke to the king, and she fell at his feet. Now she's really, really begging him and says it's not enough. because we still have the decree of Haman Ha'agagi. She calls him Haman Ha'agagi to say that Haman is dead, but his desire to kill, because he comes from Agag, because he's Amalek, is still there. What are we going to do? And she cries and she prays. She prays and she cries and she's begging him, please, 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 let me bring it back and remove the decree. He refuses. He's like, no, I can't do that. However, I'm going to do the next best thing, and says, take another decree which you have the power to create and write it out and send it out. What's the second decree going to have in it that's going to help them? What's the second decree going to have in it that's going to help them? It can't say don't kill, because that's revoking the first one. The first decree said you can go, you can kill the Jews, you can take all their stuff. That's decree number 1. So what's decree number 2 going to do that doesn't contradict that, but adds something else? That's really revoking it. It's a very complicated way to get out of it. So what they devised, Mordechai and Esther, was, okay, fine. He won't let us bring back the first one. That's already gone out. And we can't contradict it. But we are going to say that the Jewish people who fight back and defend themselves against this attack, they're not going to be prosecuted in any way. So instead of getting rid of it, was actually a clever thing they did. And it worked to some degree. There's still going to be attacks against the Jewish people, right? We'll see by many people out there, those who still want the decree to happen, the Amalekites who are out there. But he said, you know what? I can't get rid of it, and I can't tell them not to fight because that's revoking the first one. So I'm going to create another decree. Well, Mordechai and Esther didn't, and you can sign off. I'll sign on whatever you want. And it's going to be that any Jew that fights back and defends their lives or their property will not be prosecuted at all. He's basically saying, I'm allowing them to fight back. It's the next best thing. Does everyone understand decree 1, decree 2? Decree 1 is kill all the Jews, take all their stuff. You can't take that back. That means you can't say don't kill Jews and don't take their stuff. That's got to exist. So he says, fine, the Jews can fight back and defend themselves and defend their property and kill those people who try to take either, and I'm not going to get upset with them if they try to do it. That's the best I can do, and that's the best they have. And that is exactly what Mordechai and Esther do. And he adds, and by the way, everyone knows that I'm now on your side. Why? Because I gave you Haman's home. Haman's home is yours. When they see that, they know that I've taken your side over Haman's. That's why verse 7, Hinei Beit Haman natati. Esther, I gave you the house of Haman. That should be enough for everybody to know that I'm not with Haman anymore. I'm on team Mordechai and Esther. And that is exactly what they do. They send out, look at verse 11. I'm jumping a bit, but it's kind of all there. A new edict is sent out. Asher natana melech liYehudim, it's Jewish people, that every kingdom, that they are allowed to defend themselves and exterminate the people who try to hurt them or take their stuff. And he added that this all could occur on one day, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the 13th day of Adar. Meaning that if you want to take anything, you can kill and take, but you can only do it for one day. So he even limits the original decree. It's impossible to wipe out all these people, take all the stuff in one day. He's like, that decree still stands, but he limits it one more time and says, remember it said in the first decree, this all happens on the 13th day of Adar? That stands, and it's literal. You could only attack for one day. So he still limits it. Does everyone understand what's going on over here? He's limiting it as much without revoking it. It's a very smart plan they had. He's not revoking it, but he's limiting what they can do. You can only attack, only kill for one day, the original decree, against the Jewish people. The Jewish people can defend themselves. they can defend their property, and it can only be for one single day. Yes, Rachel.
So by the end of the Megillah, do we after reading it of knowledge, Achashverosh?
No, we hate Achashverosh. Achashverosh is terrible. He's acting pragmatically. He realizes that it's like there's different types of anti-Semites. Some just want to kill us, and some just want our stuff, right? And some, at one moment they like us, the next minute they don't like us. We don't like Achashverosh. He's just depicted as being reasonable so that he wouldn't get upset at the end by seeing it. But no, we don't like him, right? He just realizes that he needs the Jewish people. Haman was the problem. His love for Esther, really, he loved Esther. That's basically what it is. And he's just doing it because he loves her. That's the only reason he's doing all of this. There's no inner love that he has for the Jewish people in any way, shape, or form. It just works out well for him. That's basically it. Okay? So the Jewish people see this decree, they hear about it, and they are very happy. It all turns around and becomes good for the Jewish people. Right? Although we're far away from the attack, they realize that it's going to look good for them. And they dress up Mordechai with clothing. So here's another mention of clothing again. And they put royal clothes on him, put a gold crown, fine linen and purple. All this was to show the world that don't hurt Mordechai and his people. I'm on their side. You can. The decree's still there. But you should know that I'm doing this because I'm very... So when the Jewish people saw Mordechai going through the streets dressed up in this royal fair, 4 things happened. And it says, look at verse 15. This is a very important verse. Verse 16, chapter 8. Okay, look inside. La Yehudim hayeta. For the Jewish people there was Ora, light, Simcha, happiness, Sason, real pleasure, gladness, joy, and Yikar, great honor. So the Jewish people, when they heard about this new decree, when they saw Mordechai going out, it all turned around for them. They had light, happiness, joy, and honor. That's what they had. What does that mean? What are these 4 things? And what are they having now that Mordechai is going through the streets? What are these 4 things? So some people take them literally. They had light because they'd been living underground in order to save their lives, many of them, and they were hidden away. So now they came out of the tunnels into the light. And now they were happy. They hadn't been happy up to now, and now they were happy. And they were joyful at the events, right, that were now happening, that this decree was now not annulled, but was looking much better. And finally, the people started to honor them. People used to make fun of them and said, you're going to die. They basically started to disappear, and they weren't making fun of them anymore. Do these 4 words look familiar to you? Yeah. From? Havdalah on Motzei Shabbat. Okay. Let's go a little bit deeper. The Gemara says these 4 words are code words for 4 things. And they are light equals Torah, right? Torah, Zeorah is Torah. That's what they had. Simcha is a code word for the holidays, right? V'samachta b'chagecha. They now had Jewish holidays again. And Shabbat falls under this as well, because we have Simcha on Shabbat. What's Sason? So Sason is a code word for Brit Milah. Joy, yeah. Another word for joy. More of a loud joy. Simcha could be an inner happiness. Sason is an outward celebration. An outward celebration. That's the difference between Sason and Simcha. And honor is a code word for, there's something we have tefillin, and the word kavod, yakar, is used to describe the mitzvah of tefillin. The rabbis are like, you know what's happening over here? The Jewish people now had Torah, holidays, Brit Milah, and tefillin. What do you mean? This is way after the mitzvah were given. Of course they had these 4 things. So let's look at a few answers for this. One answer is there'd been decrees. Haman wasn't just trying to physically kill us. They created decrees that said if anyone does the Jewish holidays, right, they're going to get killed. We spoke about Hanukkah. They banned a lot of mitzvot too, if you remember, from last semester. Here as well, they are making decrees against us. No Torah, no holidays or Shabbat, no Brit Milah, and no Tefillin. And if you were doing any of those mitzvot, you were now dead. That's one opinion, that these were banned, but once Mordechai came out and was successful, they were now permitted. Answer number 1. Answer number 1. They were forbidden, and now they're permitted. Good? Okay. Answer number 2 is much deeper and a lot more important. And it goes like this. These 4 things, they always used to do. They always had Torah, always had the holidays, always had Brit Milah, always had Tefillin. Now, after these events, it was new to them. Meaning, they had a new relationship with all, they started to really enjoy them. They had a new appreciation when they were saved from being wiped out. Suddenly, people who maybe didn't do these mitzvot with a full love started to enjoy them. We're seeing this right now. We're seeing people who've never worn tefillin their entire lives suddenly go public and start to wear tefillin and start to keep Shabbat and all these things. That's a wonderful thing. Unfortunately, it took a lot of bad occurrences to lead to that point. But it's happened to the Jewish people for thousands of years. They used to not do it, or they used to do it and didn't feel anything. Now they started to feel it. That's why code words are being used. Because they always studied Torah, but now the Torah was Orah. They started to really enjoy it. They always had Shabbat. But now they started to find Simcha in the Shabbat. They started to, wow, we could have died. We're enjoying it. They always did Brit Milah, right, from the days of Avram Avinu and the Torah. Now it was a joy. Like, wow, we can actually start to celebrate these mitzvot. And of course, tefillin, suddenly being Jewish took on a whole new meaning. This isn't just a story of the Jewish people being saved. This is a story of the Jewish people finding a brand new connection to all of the mitzvot, and Jewish pride changed forever. That's what's happening over here. And that's why it doesn't just say the Jewish people at Torah, holidays, Brit Milah, Tefillin. These words we use in the Megillah to say, it wasn't just recapturing these mitzvot that either they did or didn't do. They started to get a lot more out of it. What they had wasn't Torah, it's Orah. That's what they had. It wasn't just holidays, it was Simcha. They started to enjoy and be more prideful in the Judaism than ever before. And we see, again, people today who never did mitzvah their entire life, suddenly celebrities and famous people, I'm Jewish, right? They're wearing the pin, and they're wearing tefillin. It took a lot of tragedy or near tragedy to get them to that point. That is another answer the rabbis give us for these 4 code words. Okay? What happened to the non-Jewish people? So many of them still hated the Jewish people and wanted them dead. But a lot of people, non-Jews, converted. Look at verse 17 for a fascinating idea. Uvachol medina medina, in every state and every city, asher dvar melech v'dato megia, wherever the king's decree went, right? Simcha v'sason liyudim, the Jewish people were very, very happy, and they made a mishteh v'yom tov. V'rabim, many mi'amei ha'aretz, from the non-Jewish people, mityahadim. Mityahadim. What is that? What's mit? Could you close the door, please? There's noises. What does mityahadim mean? Mityahadim. I would write down this word if I were you, or highlight it. It's a very interesting expression to use. The Jewish people now, they're elated. Now we're like, but this story doesn't just affect the Jewish people. There were many non-Jewish people who were affected, and they became mityahadim. What is that? They became Jewish people. They became Jewish. Yeah, they converted.
So is that what that means? Convert?
So that's unusual. To say they converted, what would it say? What's the right way of saying it?
Not that.
What? Mitgayerim. They became gerim. It doesn't say that. It says mityahadim. Now that's unusual. What is that idea of mityahadim? Mityahadim is they became as though they were Jewish. As though they were Jewish. They basically, on the outside it seemed it, and they started to favor us. They started to wear stars of David, I don't know. They started to, put on the outside costume of being Jewish, because the Jewish people were ascending at this point. They're doing very well, but they didn't really mean it. They didn't really mean it, and they weren't really converts. They didn't really convert. They just kind of like joined the Jewish people as if I'm culturally part of you people as well. This actually is the closest verse we have in the Megillah as to why we get dressed up on Purim. This is one of them. From the Megillah, there's going to be an earlier source from the Torah in a second, but this is one of the verses over here. They just pretended, they dressed up as if they were Jewish. So we're like, they're just faking it. They just need us now, so we get dressed up as well. That's one of the ideas of getting dressed up on Purim. It comes from this word, mityahadim. They just kind of feigned it. They just faked it out. They weren't really joining our people. They were just pretending. Right? And it says right after, ki nafal pachad Yehudim aleim. They just did it because they were scared of the Jewish people. So, oh yeah, we love the Jews. We always did. Look, I'll wear a yarmulke, just like you people, I'll get dressed up like you. It was all pretense. It wasn't a bad thing, right? Potentially, but that's all it really was. Does anyone know the source for getting dressed up? We've seen many references to getting dressed up, but what is the original source of getting dressed up in order to get something?
Like not in this story?
Not in this story. In the Torah, we see someone getting dressed up as someone else, and that's really the root of being dressed up.
That was where I was going.
Which is?
Didn't Esav dress up as Yaakov in order to get a certain bracha?
Other way around.
That's exactly what
Yaakov got dressed up as Esav in order to get the brachot. Because Esav rejected the Bechorah. He's like, I don't want to be the firstborn. I don't want to be involved Jewishly. I don't want my descendants of the Torah. Too many limitations. He sold it. So comes along, when he comes to getting the bracha, he's like, well, Esav sold the birthright for a bowl of lentils, literally a bowl of beans. I'm going to come in and I'm going to get the bracha. It's actually mine because I bought it legally and lawfully. But my father's not aware of this, so I'm going to get the bracha. And he got dressed up as him. He got dressed up as a different person. That, my dear friends, is one of the roots, is probably the original root of us getting dressed up as the other nations, as if to say, the brachot come to us. We remember Yaakov getting dressed up, right? He put on a furry outfit, so that when his father, who was blind, Yitzchak, felt him, he's like, oh, you really have Hayadayim de Esav. You have the hands of Esav, but the kol Yaakov, but your voice, the way you talk, the way you pray, that's Yaakov. Okay, so we do the same thing. We kind of allude to that story that Esav is no longer part of it, and remember that Amalek come from Agag, and he comes from Esav. So we're kind of rejecting that, and that part doesn't matter anymore. We are now fully the Jewish people, just like he dressed up in order to get it, we're getting dressed up as well. That's the root reason from the Torah perspective of why we get dressed up. And this is the one from the Megillah Mityahadim. And that's what they do. Okay? Now verse 9, we're going to finish off the Megillah. Not much more. So they send it out that the 13th day of the 12th month, which is Adar, because remember, at this point, they're calling the months by names, not numbers. So Mordechai and Esther wrote it as a number and a name, because the names was a relatively new thing. The Jewish people didn't know that the numbers and names went together, and they prepared themselves, okay, to defend themselves, to get the upper hand. And look at the word which I mentioned, v'nahafoch. It all turned around. This is verse 1, chapter 9, v'nahafoch. It all turned around. Hafoch is upside down, right? Like a cafe hafoch. What's a cafe hafoch? Cappuccino. Upside down coffee. Very good. Who I share. Everything they wanted to do to them, they did back. And the Jewish people prepared themselves to defend themselves. Yeah. And it all worked out very, very, very well. They came to attack them and hurt them. And in Shushan, the capital, Shushan HaBirah, verse 6, it says that the Jews killed and annihilated 500 men. Now, the word men is ish. Ish, whenever in the Torah you see the word ish, it means very important people. So there was actually a war that happened on the 13th day of Adar, and the Jewish people defend themselves, and not that we know of, not a single Jew died. They were able to defend themselves and to wipe out all those people, those prominent men who came to kill them at that time. There were many, many more people who actually came to hurt them, but those are the ones that did it. In addition, the 10 sons of Haman also were killed, and they were hanged on the same gallows that Haman was hanged on. And if you look at Ve'et, it's going to list from verse 7 the 10 sons of Haman who died and were killed on that day.
Like one breath.
In one breath, that's right. Now, if you look at it, there's different ways that the Torah sometimes changes the design of the words. Like, for example, last week, we saw the Yam Suf Az Yashir is written very unusually. How's it written? How's Az Yashir printed in the Torah? There's spaces. How are the spaces? It's like a column on the right, a column on the left, and a column in the middle. Why is the typeface and design changed for the song at the sea? So one opinion is because it represents the Jewish people. The water was on the right, water's on the left, and the Jewish people walked in between when they went through the Red Sea, the Yam Suf. Okay. Another opinion is that it appears like bricks. What do bricks appear like? 1, 2, and then 1. 1, 2, and then 1. It's like a brick design. So that brick design, as it appears, right, like this, shows that the Jewish people were safe as they passed through, and the waters bricked up around them. Okay. Here, there's another design change, and it appears in the Megillah like this, as 2 columns. When it lists the 10 sons of Haman who died, it appears as 2 columns. That's the actual design used in every Megillat Esther, when it's written on cloth, on parchment. Why is this? Well, it represents the poles, right? The pole that they were hanged on. But also it shows that ultimately, in the end, Haman and his descendants are not going to stand. Brick form can last a long time. So the Jewish people are the brick form. Amalek are straight. They're up. They were hanged, 10 of them on one pole, all the way down, however it was done, maybe on one pole down, but eventually they're going to fall. Okay? That was the end. It was a long pole, and they all died in one moment. That's why there's a custom to read all these 10 names in one breath, which, I mean, is a real skill, because there's some very hard ones, right? If you just try to do it, and it goes through, and they read it in one breath, and they all died. There is a special negative mitzvah when it comes to fighting Amalek, not to, anyone know? Once you've killed them, not to take their stuff. When you fight other nations, you kill them, and you get their spoils. You get the spoils of war to keep, the gold, the silver. That's just the way war always and has always worked. Amalek are so bad that when you fight them and kill them, you've got to completely destroy all that. You can get no pleasure from any of their stuff. Avram Avinu, when he fought Amalek, he was dealing with him. He didn't take one. He said, I'm not even going to take the shoelace from your shoe and use that. Yoshua, he fought Amalek. He says, we're not taking any of the spoils. When Shaul fought Agag, he let their stuff live afterwards. He said, why not? We just killed Amalek. We killed Agag and his people, and we'll use the animals as sacrifice to Hashem. He's like, I don't want that. And he lost his kingship. So look what happens over here. Look at verse 10. Aseret b'nei Haman ben Abda. They killed these 10 sons of Haman. Lo shalchu et yadam. They didn't take their stuff. They didn't take their stuff, and they were very wealthy. Right? They could have taken all the stuff that belonged to everyone from Amalek. They never took any of their stuff. Yeah.
Were they able to take Haman's house because it was a gift from Achashverosh?
Yes. That was a statement.
It was like a separate
Yeah, that was a statement. That was a statement, I guess you can say that was the exception to the rule. Achashverosh said, take it, so that people could say, you see, we're in charge now. Haman's gone, we Jews are taken over. He's finished with. We're taking his land, and we're taking his property.
One more question.
Don't mess with the Jewish people, because you could use your life and lose your land and your property. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Was it 512
I don't know what I'm
men
trying
that
to
they
wrong.
killed?
There were probably many, many more. At least 500 leaders in Shoshana Bira. There was a massive revolt in Shoshana Bira, and 500 of the leaders of that day came to attack. Doesn't mean they were all Amalek, right? There were people who maybe just, joining along in order to take advantage of them. And they were all wiped out. Okay, but the 10 sons of Haman were definitely Amalek because their father was Haman. And they got to survive. So now we see the celebration that the Jewish people had. So let's work this out. Oh, by the way, there's another thing. When you fight Amalek, there's a custom that goes back to the first war against Amalek. What's the first official war against Amalek? When the Jewish people left Egypt, we saw Amalek came to attack them. Moshe Rabbeinu has his hands up, right? Hor and Yeshua hold their hands up, and they win that war against Amalek. On that day, they fasted. When you fight Amalek, you don't eat. Because it's not just a physical war, it's a spiritual war. But you think it's crazy, right? You're going to battle, troops need to be fed. They are. But on the war itself, there's no eating. Same thing over here. They fasted. When they fought against them, they fasted. So it's now the 13th day. On the 13th, they came to attack, and they had relief on the 14th day. So the 14th is the day after the fighting, and that's what we celebrate as Purim. That's Purim, okay? So what's Shushan Purim? What is that?
In Iran, they have Shushan Purim.
What is it? What is Shushan Purim? Now, what is Shushan Purim?
In gated cities, don't they celebrate it?
Why are we celebrating Purim for an extra day? It's like a 2-day Purim we're about to hear over here.
In Persia?
Everywhere. To this day.
Israel, it's 2 days.
Okay. It's not all of Israel. It's in certain cities within Israel.
Right.
Okay. So it goes like this. This is what's going on. Let me give you the background over here. So they fought on the 13th, and they're fasting, which we're going to do to this day. That is Tanit Esther. That's the fast. Yeah? And we celebrate on the 14th. That's Purim. In Shushan, the fighting went on extra. We're not sure why. Maybe the amount of fighting, maybe they were more secure, but the fighting happened on the 14th. Right? Probably the 13th and the 14th, but definitely the 14th. So they were not celebrating in Shushan on the 14th. When did they celebrate? The day after, which is the 15th. So now we have 3 dates. We have 13, 14, and 15. 13, they're fasting and fighting against Amalek, right, which is a physical and a spiritual battle, which is why they're fighting and they're fasting. They celebrate on the 14th. But the Jews in Shushan could not celebrate on the 14th because they are fighting still. It was an extra year fighting. So they celebrated on the 15th. So now the rabbi's like, fine, we need to recreate this. And we're going to say that whoever lives in a walled city like Shushan, because we know that Shushan was a walled city, whoever lives in a walled city, right, just like Shushan, should celebrate on the 15th. That's their Purim. If you are living or you are in a walled city when it comes around, you're going to celebrate. Here's the challenge. What constitutes a walled city? So here the rabbis were very sensitive about Yerushalayim. At this point, were the walls of Yerushalayim existing? Were there walls, at this point of the story, were there walls around Yerushalayim? No, they've been destroyed because the temple had been destroyed. So the rabbis are like, look, we don't want to embarrass Yerushalayim, so we're going to make a decree like this. It's going to sound unusual, but this is the way it works out. Any city that had walls in it from the days of Yoshua, who entered into Israel, when Israel was established under Yoshua, that is what we consider to be a walled city. Because in those days, Yerushalayim did have a wall that surrounded it. So any city that had walls, from when the Jewish people entered into Israel the first time, they're going to celebrate what's called Shushan Purim, the holiday of Shushan Purim, which is basically the same as Purim, but a day later. A day later.
So they don't celebrate the 14th?
No.
They fast the 14th?
They fast on 13th or 14th, and they party and celebrate all the mitzvahs on the 15th. No, just one.
13th
Just
or
one.
14th?
Yeah. And that's when they celebrate it, and they celebrate it. And to this very day. So what are some examples of this, of the 15th? So in Yerushalayim is one of them. Right? There are certain cities like Ashdod, Ashkelon, Beersheba, Bet Sha'an, Gush Kalev, Hebron, Haifa, that are open for people to actually celebrate Purim the day later. Okay? And they'll actually keep this every single year. So look at verse 21. לקיים עליהם להיות עושים את יום 14 לחודש אדר ואת יום 15 בו. Every בכל שנה ושנה. This is going to go on for the rest of history. Okay? Until when? Le'olam. Forever. This mitzvah was not just a one-off celebration. Every single year, they are going to celebrate this consistently every single year. Okay? And Mordechai and Esther then tell the Jewish people how to celebrate. What are they going to do? And these are basically, they're going to outline the 4 mitzvot that we have on Purim. There are 4 mitzvot we have on Purim, and they are mentioned. Right? Because everything nehefach turned around, from sadness, mi'agon l'simcha, mi'evel, from mourning to Yom Tov, you're going to do yemei mishta, make a meal. So here are the mitzvot, the rabbinic, these are derabanan, these are rabbinic mitzvot, because it's not in the Torah, and Mordechai and Esther say, now they can't, rabbis don't have the power to create negative malachot. They can't forbid malachot like on Shabbat. Only the Torah could do that. But they can make positive mitzvot. Okay? So what are the positive mitzvot? So number 1, okay, is mishteh. Now, I'm just going to tell you what they are, and then later on we're going to go through the details of how to perform each one of these mitzvot. So number one is a meal. There's a mitzvah to have a meal on the day itself, mishteh. That's number one. That's what she says. Yemei mishteh v'simcha, an enjoyable, happy meal. 2, mishloch manot, to give foods. Okay, again, we're going to define the rabbi's going to give us what constitutes foods, how many, but we know it's plural. Mishloach manot, foods. Who to? Ish l'reihu, to each other. Umatanot, and gifts. It says in the Megillah, to evyonim. What are evyonim? To very poor. So it's basically portions, and that's important. It doesn't say money, it says portions. Okay? To very poor people. And there are different levels of poor. There's an ani, there's a rush, there's an evyon. Evyon are people who really cannot afford the basic necessities of food. It's going to be surprisingly difficult to find such people, Baruch Hashem, nowadays. Okay? But, so we'll see how to fulfill that mitzvah. That's not just giving tzedakah. And of course, reading the Megillah itself. Okay? We're going to read the Megillah, we'll see, twice. Night and day. And we'll see why you need to have both. It's not just enough, and it goes through again, because that's basically what happens. The Jewish people were saved. There was fighting at nighttime, they were saved. There was fighting at daytime, they were saved. And all of this came to save them. It then says, very interestingly, verse 27, chapter 9, verse 20, right near the end, it adds two very weird words. Two very weird words right at the end of the Megillah. Kimu v'kiblu hayudim aleihem. The Jewish people accepted upon themselves va'al zaram, and our descendants, v'al kol nevam aleihem, and everyone else, to keep these days of Purim every single year. That's what they did. V'lo yavru mitoch hayudim forever. They're always going to keep these laws. These two words, kimu and kiblu, are very important. Very, very important. And we're going to investigate them in a little while, but write them down, just highlight it, because we are going to discuss them. Okay? So we see that there's idea of it, and the idea of Tanit Esther as well, every single year, because Amalek is still out there. They actually made the idea of a Tanit every single year as well. And V'nichtav b'sefer, look at verse 32, and all of this was written down and put inside the Torah. That's why Megillat Esther is officially part of Tanakh. It's one of the 5 Megillot that we have. Interestingly, the word Megillah means a scroll, but it also is a hint to this. Megillat Esther is legaleh nistar, to reveal that which is hidden. Megillat Esther, scroll of Esther, but it's also megaleh, is to reveal mashaya nistar, that was hidden. Okay, so it has that double effect. And Achashverosh kept the Jewish people. He made them full citizens. He gave them taxes, just like you do to everyone. And look at the last verse. And this is the very famous, the last verse of Megillat Esther, chapter 10. It says that the Jewish people were happy and they were joyous. But when it came to Mordechai, it says, Rov Echav, most of his brothers were happy with him. Most of the people were happy with him. Well, who's not happy with Mordechai? Did he just save the entire Jewish people? Did he just save everyone? Why does it finish by saying, yeah, but not everyone was happy with him? What? Who wasn't happy with Mordechai? Why does he say only most of his brothers? Who are his brothers?
The Jews.
Specifically someone, the other rabbis. Not all the Rabbanim were happy with Mordechai. Why? Because he had to leave his Torah for decades. He had to leave his study because he spent his entire time saving the Jewish people. He had to get involved politically. There were many rabbis that were upset with him. And they were like, you know what? The Jewish people could have been saved any other way. Why did you leave your post at being the head of the Jewish community, studying and praying, in order to do all this? So you can't win. Many of the rabbis, it says, and Rashi brings us down, the Gemara brings us down, were upset with him and said, you overstepped your boundaries, you should never got involved, you should have left it to someone else. Look at that. After all you do, you're still going to have haters. My rabbi would say, learn from this, no matter how much good you think you're doing and how much good you actually do, you're always going to get people who are angry with you and upset with you. You can't please everyone. And we learn from this that you shouldn't try to please everyone. You still have to do the right thing. That's Varov Echav. Majority were happy. Many of them looked down upon him. He actually went down in their esteem after this story. Yes, Mira.
Isn't there an idea where you're not supposed to let Hashem do everything for you? You still have to try and put effort in, kind of when you're there's the example of crossing the street, you can't just walk in and say oh, Hashem's not gonna.
Very good. That is called hishtadlut.
So isn't it technically everyone's job to put in the effort?
So what were they saying? They were saying it wasn't your job in the first place. Someone else could have done it, or you overdid it. You did too much hishtadlut. You overdid it.
That's a little insane.
Okay? That was their opinion. And what's insane is that he included in the Megillah to be not everyone was happy with me. Right? So you can read that either way. Okay, let's look at some of the sources. Now turn to page 30 of your books. Okay? Let's look at some of these sources. This is really a repetition of what we said before, just a bit more detail. Okay, so the Gemara says that Esther is mentioned in the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. The question is, where is Esther min Torah? V'anochi haster Esther panai b'yamahu. It says in Devarim, chapter 31:18, Deuteronomy, that Hashem's going to hide his face. That's a prophecy given to Moshe Rabbeinu about the story of Purim and Esther. There are times when Hashem hides his face. Okay? So one of the Rabbi Pinkus says, you see that much of life is hidden miracles and revealed miracles. Okay? And we've mentioned this before, but we'll do it again. Right? We're going to revisit this Kiblu v'Kiblu later on. Do not worry. And we're going to visit all these mitzvot again. But he says that we have 2 types of miracles. We have Nes Nistar, right? And Nes Nigla. Which one is better? Well, actually, the Nes Nigla, the revealed miracles, right, like Chanukah and Pesach, is good. We like that more because that shows that Hashem's kavod, the miracles are open, everyone gets to see it, they're impacted. But this is also very important. These are hidden miracles. See? Hidden miracles where it looks like coincidence. And really that's what this story is. Right? It looks coincidental. It happens to be that Mordechai overhears these 2 guys try to assassinate. Happily writes it down. It happens to be that Haman chooses to try to kill the Jewish people. It all seems very coincidental. But really we consider that to be a nes as well. Chanukah is going to be the end of open miracles and represent open miracles, and Purim represents closed miracles. Okay? And as I think I mentioned already, we're going to see the toys that we use. The Nes Nigla is represented by the dreidel, right? Yeah? Where Hashem's hand comes on top and spins it. That's Chanukah. The events are being spun by Kadosh Baruch Hu, and this is the Rashan, the Graga, right? The Rashan, the noisemaker, and the hand is underneath. But it's all Hashem's hand, okay? And we see that Hashem's name is not mentioned in the Megillah at all explicitly. It seems like it, and the events do not take on any openly miraculous miracles at all. So our job is to go beneath the surface in order to see Hashem's hand. And that takes more work. This takes more work. It's hard to see Hashem's hand. Right? You got to dig. You got to take the costume off, right, in order to see who's behind the costume. That's what's happening over there. Okay? And that is why it's called Pur. The holiday is called Purim, because it seems like a lottery. It happens to be these, it's all coincidence. And that's how Haman related to it. At no point was he even willing to give up the fact that Hashem was controlling the events and he wasn't going to win. So we say, well, your Purim, it goes the other way. And that's why I think I mentioned the astrological sign for this month of Adar is Pisces, fish. But it's fish going opposite directions. It looks like it's going that way, and then it switches direction. That's the juxtaposition. Okay? Everything's flowing one way, and then in 1 second, it flows the other. The opposing directions of Pisces, of Dug, the month of Dug. Got it? Of the fish. Okay. And fish, by the way, always represent idea of plentifulness, goodness, and blessings. So this is a month of blessings, because fish are rove, there's lots of them. So fish always represents lots. Okay? Lots and lots and lots. That's why the first time we see the word bracha mentioned in the Torah is in relation to the creation of dagim, of fish. The first time the word bracha appears in the Torah is when Hashem created fish. Fish represent bracha. So that is the perfect symbol for Adar, the month of Barachot. Yeah? Are we good? Okay. We'll stop over there. We'll pick this up in Mr. Hashem on Thursday to run through some more ideas about Amalek and the mitzvot of Purim itself. Have a great day.